Good morning, friends. This is Dennis Miracle. Today I'm going to be making Crazy Quilt block number 6, and as you can see, I have already I'm using the 8x8 hoop. The design is, as you can see, about 7.6 inches square, and I'm going to be placing down a piece of batting next. Since I've already run the first step, place your batting down next, and I would suggest, if you're doing this is the 8x8 size, although it's 7.6 by 7.6, I just call it 8x8. You might want to increase the size of your fabric, your batting fabric to put down, make it at least 9 inches square. I would say 9 to 9.5. This isn't a square that I've picked. It's 9.5 by 10.5, I think, but I knew that it was big enough. I knew that it was at least 9.5. So anyhow, I'm going to place my, I'm using black thread, and I've got black thread in the bobbin also. And I'm going to place my piece of batting down and sew step number 2. So I'll be right back. All right, you can see I've run the, I've just stitched down the batting, and the next thing that's going to run, let's look over here at our screen, is going to be the step number 3, which just is the placement step, placement places for all the different pieces of fabric we're going to use. And so let me run that, and so I can know where to place the fabric. So I'll do that and be back in a moment. All right, you can see that I have finished step 3, and just as a side note, you're going to think your sewing machine has lost its mind or has been drinking, because it goes back and forth, to and fro, every direction, 9 times to Sunday. So it does finally get this done, but it goes through some very different, very strange routes to do that. But anyhow, so number 3 is done, and let's look at our machine and see what the 4th step is. All right, it's this, I've done this one block with this odd piece of center fabric, which is kind of a long runway, which I think was kind of a neat thing. I think this is going to be an interesting block. So let me find a piece of fabric long enough to go at least ½ inch on each, past the outer edge on each side, and wide enough to cover it with an extra spare on each side of it, so spare ½ inch or ½ inch. So let me find something and I'll put it down and sew it down. I'll put it down and show you what I found first, so I'll be right back. Okay, I have found this beautiful strip of red fabric that is just barely big enough to cover on the sides, so I might be flirting with disaster. And the only other disaster I have pending is I found my little iron and pressing mat, which is right by my arm. So if you hear me screaming in the UK or Australia, you'll know that I've hit this thing with my right arm. So anyhow, I'm going to sew this down, and I'll be right back. All right, you can see I have sewn down this piece of fabric, and I'm going to take and attempt to trim it, though there's not much trimming to do. I'm gonna trim right here on the sides, on both sides, because this was really super narrow, just big enough to cover it. So I really took a chance with this one, but I wanted this red to be down the center as the center stripe. So I took a chance, and I think it's going to be okay. So let me do some trimming, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, I have done some trimming. As you can see, there wasn't much to trim, so that was kind of interesting. It was kind of difficult because there was just, it was so close, but I did trim some, so we're going to go with that. I think it's going to be okay. Let's look over at our sewing machine and see where we're going next. Okay, we're going, let me turn the hoop around the right way. We're going to go right here. So let me find a piece of fabric and place that down and sew it, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, here's the next piece that you can see is sewn down. It looks great. I've got at least a ½ inch over here on the sides here. I call this the margin, the part that's outside the actual design. So I've got plenty in the margin. I'm going to take and come in right here at an angle and just follow this line of stitching and just so cut right off here, like just like this. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see that I have trimmed that and left a nice little area here in the margin and down here. So let's look and see where we're going next. Okay, here we look. Okay, we're going right below that. We're going to go right here, so let me find a piece for that. All right, I found this very light yellow piece. I'm going to now stick it in the machine and sew it down, so I'll be back in just a moment. All right, you can see that's been sewn down, and I'm going to come in right here from this corner and go straight up and just follow it right around this the perimeter of this little portion, and just come straight off here like this. So let me do that and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, you can see how I cut. I cut just as I told you I would, leaving a nice area here in the margin. And then we're going to look over at our machine and see where we're going next. All right, you see that we're going right beside that piece. We're going right here. So let me find a piece for that and I'll be right back. All right, you see I found a piece and I've placed over the area, so I'm going to sew this down and I'll trim it and show you how that looks in a moment. Okay, you see that piece has been sewn down. I'm going to come in with my scissors right like this and just cut around it and then cut right off here to the edge. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right, I did as I said I would do, and you can see that there's quite a bit left over in the margin, which is just fine. So let's look at our machine and see where we're going next. All right, we're going up at the top. We're going to do this little triangle area right here. So let me find a piece of fabric and sew it down. I'll show you how that looks in a moment. All right, I found this pretty piece of purple and I'm going to sew it down and trim it, and I'll show you how that's done. I'll be right back. All right, it's sewn down. I'm going to take my scissors and come in right about here and just follow the sewing line like this and right off like that, leaving a nice big area here in the margin. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see how I've cut it, leaving plenty of fabric in the margin. And so let's see where we're going next. Let me turn this around to where the right orientation. We've only got 2 squares left, and we're going right beside the last one. All right, we're going right here, so let me find something and I'll sew it down. All right, I found this pretty piece of tan fabric with some flowers, floral fabric, and I'm going to come in and cut right here, follow the line around, and straight up through here, and straight off. And then we'll be left with one piece to do. So anyhow, let me do my cutting and then I'll find another piece and place it down and sew it down. I'll be right back. All right, you see how I've cut that, and I think it's just perfect. And then I've got this one left over. Don't need to look at the screen. We know we got one left over to do. So let me find something, a piece of fabric for it, and I'll sew it down and show you that. Be right back. Okay, folks, I've committed a sin. This goes against my cardinal rules, but I did it anyhow. So, you can see there is just a tiny bit, but sometimes we have to do this. So, I wanted this piece, and hopefully it will stay here, and I think it'll be okay. But as a general rule, I don't do this. Those of you who followed me, this is block number 6, probably have never seen me do that, leave so little in the margin. But I did. This right up here, it's fine. A lot of fabric in the margin here. I'm going to come in right here and trim right against the stitch line and up. Not much over here, but a little tiny bit. And that will be the end of our piecing. And I'm going to give it a little, I've got this iron, I'm going to iron this little piece right here. I've been ironing some of these as we go along because I just like them to be nice and flat. Anyhow, I'm going to trim this and I'll be back in a moment. All right, you can see I trimmed it, came in and trimmed it just like this and up like this. And it was a little more difficult because there was very little to grab here, but I did it. And so I'm going to, we're done with the piecing, and now we're going to start the beautiful, for this pattern, we're going to start the interior fills, the interior stitching on all the interiors of these pieces, and then we'll do the beautiful crazy quilt stitches going along the seams. Sometimes I do the seams first, sometimes I do the fills first, and on this one apparently I decided for whatever reason to do the fills first. And I'm going to unplug this iron because it is extremely hot and somehow I have not burned myself, but I'm going to set it aside. I think I'm done with it for now. So let me do that, and I'm going to run each of these steps. They're each in separate steps. I'm going to run them one right after the other, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done as far as these fills. So be back in a bit. Okay, friends, finally this is has been completed as far as the fills. And I particularly love this one with the stars. That's why I wanted this red there. So anyhow, the next thing we're going to do is now it's time to start the process of the crazy quilt stitches that will go along each of the seams, and that'll take a little bit of time also. And I think I'm going to change from black to gold. And so we'll see how that works out with gold thread in the top and the bottom. So let me get started on that and I'll show you what that looks like when I'm done. Okay, finally all of the beautiful stitching has been completed, as you can see on the seams. And the next thing that's going to happen, step 24, is that the presser foot sewing is going to go around the exterior of this design and sew down all of these little pieces that we have here all along the sides, so they're all sewn out or sewn down and held down. So let me go ahead and run that step and I'll be right back. Alrighty, at this point, if you are making a quilting square, then the sewing would be over. You would take the design out of the hoop and do the trimming and squaring. You take off the whatever stabilizer that surrounds the design, and then you would do your squaring up of the design and cut it back to whatever size of seam you were going to use, whether 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or whatever you're using. So that would be the end of this video or of your block. But however, I'm going to go ahead and run the last 2 steps, which will make it a nice mug rug. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the design out of the machine and turn the hoop over to the back and place a square of fabric face up, looking the right side of it looking up at you, and just place it over the back of the design and tape it down on all four sides. That'll be the backing for our mug rug. So let me do that and I'll show you that in just a moment. All right, now you are looking at the back of the hoop. I have put on a square block. It's 9.5 by 9.5, I believe, that fully covers the design. As you can see, there's no part of the design sticking out on the back side. So it's all covered, and I'm going to take and stick this in the machine and run the next step, which will go around the entire perimeter of the design and put a zigzag stitch. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, you can see the zigzag around the exterior perimeter. And what I'm going to do now is you need to take the design, take the hoop out of your machine, and you need to take your applique scissors or some scissors, whatever scissors you want to use, and cut all the fabric, the cotton fabric, right up to the stitches, right up to the zigzag stitches. Trim this all the way around on all four sides, right up to the zigzag stitches. Then you want to do the same thing with your batting. Trim the batting up to the stitches, the zigzag stitches, but you're not done yet. Turn it over and do the back piece of fabric all the way. Let's see how that's sewed. And take it and cut it, trim it all the way up to the zigzag stitches all the way around. So when you're done with that, then are going to start our satin stitching, which will put a beautiful edge all around this. So let me start, and it'll take 5 minutes probably, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, you can see that I have trimmed the batting and the cotton fabric itself on the front, and I've also turned it over and trimmed the back fabric all the way to the zigzag stitches. So now the last step is running the satin stitch, and I've got gold, of course, still in the top and also in my bobbin, so it looks nice on the back side also. And I can already tell you I will be running this twice because I never find that once around is sufficient with my machines. Maybe some other machines do a better job, but I'm going to run it once and then I'll back it up to step 26 and run it another time. So anyhow, let me start that because that will take a bit, and I will show you how it looks when it's all done. Be back in a bit. All right, it is finished, and let me take it out of the hoop. Now I need to, it should pull right out. In any event, I'll take it out after I put the phone up, but you can see it a little bit left on the side. What I do is if there's anything left on the side, I just go up the sides with the applique scissors and get rid of whatever little bitty pieces are left like that. And let's look at the back. Okay, the back looks good. Alrighty, anyhow, that's the end of block number 6. I hope you've enjoyed watching me create it, and I hope if you obtain the pattern, you'll make beautiful quilt or mug rugs or something with this pattern. And I just want to thank you for watching with me today, and thank all those who continue to support me. It means so much. And I've got 6 or 7 more I've already made or already digitized, not sewn out, but I'll be making those soon. And so just stay tuned. I'll be back soon. Thank you, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.